You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz, and today is 10/29/21. Well, if you're like me, you're probably approaching Medicare age shortly. You're one of those boomers that managed to survive the global pandemic. And, a lot of you out there haven't. A lot of your friends, your family, and we express our deepest condolences, but now life has to go on. You got to figure out what to do with your Social Security, your Medicare, your retirement, and a good place to go is 55retire.com. That's the number 55retire.com. Mark Singer, proprietor of that site, is with us now again, and we appreciate you coming back, Mark. So, hey, Social Security getting the largest increase that it's seen in decades now, 5.9% getting tacked on. Probably a similar number is going to come next year. It makes one wonder how much longer Social Security is going to last in its current form.
You know, it's a great question. And by the way, thanks, Kerry, for having me back on. It was with eager anticipation we were awaiting that number. The way that number is, how we come to that number, or how the Social Security Administration trustees come to that number, it's the CPIW. And what they do is they take a snapshot of the third quarter of the particular year, for this year, 2021. And how were we over the previous year? So it's year over year. And what we had seen in the first two quarters ran about 5.5% to 6% higher than it was the year before in 2020. And sure enough, for the third quarter of 2021, it showed a 5.9% increase over the previous year. So therefore, those who are on Social Security next year will be getting a 5.9% increase. And those, who are eligible for Social Security and are deferring, not only will they get that 8% annual delayed credit, but they'll also tack on another 5.9% onto that as an increase for future benefits, which is good news. Now, the flip side of that is that as a result of this inflation and other elements as well, not just the cost of living adjustment, but the independent report did come out, and it said that Social Security's liquidity, or should we define it as for how long can Social Security continue to get 100% of their promised payments out, that year was brought back a year. So it went from 2000, if you will, 34-35 to 2033. So what that means at the moment is if we do absolutely nothing, that Social Security will run out of the necessary funding, or will not have enough necessary funding to provide 100% of the benefit. They'll be able to pay out approximately 80% of the benefit starting in 2033. But, as we typically do, we don't do anything until we are about to go off the ledge, off the cliff. Congress, is having numbers of conversations about this. There are a number of different ways to improve the funding or liquidity to sort of kick the can down the road. And I fully expect that to happen. Anyone who is in Congress with the demographics as such that those of us who are collecting Social Security, if they allow for this to happen, they should be voted out. So I expect for changes to come. We've always got big things, on the offering, in Washington. Certainly, today is a big day. But this will be addressed, and there will be changes. And I fully expect that we will continue to get 100% of the benefits that are guaranteed well beyond 2033.
All right. Well, so they're going to just kick the can down the road. And if they need to print the difference, they're just going to do it. So this kind of bakes more inflation into the cake, doesn't it?
Well, it's interesting because inflation really is a double-edged sword. I was just talking to a fund manager who basically said that he felt the supply chain was broken and that he thought it was going to be another 5 years before we fixed it. There are a lot of others out there who believe that it is transitory. However, you go into your grocery stores and you find shelves empty, prices that have escalated. For any supplies that you're looking for, we happen to have a boat and we needed power steering fluid. And we went to the local store, and of the 12 or 15 providers they usually had at the time, they had one. So this is impacting us at many different levels, not just in terms of availability and access, but in terms of pricing as well. And you had mentioned the reason why I bring this all up, next year you expect this inflation impact to also sort of be a benefit in terms of the cost of living adjustment for next year as well to Social Security. But remember, it's just the third quarter's numbers that they take a look at. And there are a number of people who think that, yes, we'll continue to have supply chain issues for some period of time. Some don't believe it'll last a full year. As I said, this fund manager believes it could last 3, 4, or 5 years. So there is an impact on all of us, particularly those who are on fixed income. It's good news that we got the 5.9% increase on Social Security. But, looking back over the last 15, 20 years, Social Security has gotten cost of living increases probably closer to about 1.5% annually, whereas inflation, particularly those who are retired, and particularly as it relates to their health costs, those numbers have gone up at a much higher rate than the 1.5%. So, we really have to take a look at it as a whole. So good news for Social Security, bad news for those who are in the process of putting additions onto a house, like my stepdaughter, who is finding that it's going to cost her $30,000 more than she thought it was because of the pricing. She's fortunate she had orders in and could actually get access to the appliances she was looking for. But for investors, it's another story. Speaking of things that are broken or things that have changed a paradigm shift, no one's talked about the fact that for a 40-year period, we had a bond rally. Interest rates have been going down. I closed on my first condo at a 17% mortgage rate. I happily refinanced at 13.5. I'm now paying 2.875. So bonds have been wonderful places as interest rates have been coming down. The bond values, therefore, have been going up, and people have been clipping coupons, even though they're at a lower rate than they were many years ago. We're still getting income from it. Well, now there's basically no income from it. And when interest rates start to go back up, which they will, which will be the next big move, then the value of your bonds is going to come down. So how do you invest? Where do you find safe places? What does conservative mean anymore? My father-in-law, who was invested in municipal bonds for the last 36 years and is 89 years old, his municipal bonds that are now maturing, he's putting into a basket of dividend yielding stocks because he can't find any income from the fixed income market right now. So one thing to think about and some guidance for your listeners, if they are looking to find some places and place money or invest money on the fixed income side, be sure that you don't put it in anything that's long term. If you're going to place it in a CD, fine, 6 months, maybe a year, not much more than that. Because for instance, if you put it in a 3 or a 5 year CD, or you lock into a 10-year bond and you lock it into today's lowest rates historically in many, many, many years, in a couple of years, those rates are going to be up, but you're going to be locked into the low rates. So if you're going to look to put your money to all and get anything from it, then do it up with short-term duration bonds or bond funds or short duration CDs. And then when they come due, at least you have the flexibility to participate when interest rates are going up. But it's a real conundrum right now in terms of good asset allocation.
Right. And really getting stuck on the wrong end of that trade. Hey, if you're going to hold it to maturity, that's one thing. Then you're not going to see your principal erode. But if you're not going to, or you're going to need the money before then, it could be a tremendous hit that you take. If we even get to historically normal rates of 5%, you're really going to get burned, aren't you?
Don't just survive, thrive. The Financial Survival Network.
Fury Gold Mines is a Canada-focused exploration and development company committed to aggressively growing its scalable, high-grade gold assets with major drill campaigns planned across its 3.5 million ounce portfolio. Fury is led by a management team of proven explorers and developers with a track record of success in advancing and financing project development. Fury Gold Mines is well positioned to create value for investors with low-risk development growth and the potential for a new major discovery. Fury Gold Mines trades on the TSX and NYSE American under the ticker FURY. To learn more, go to furygoldmines.com. That's furygoldmines.com.
This is the Financial Survival Network, the information you need to thrive now more than ever.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't think 5% is on the horizon. We do take a look at, again, the 5.9% increase on the Social Security and how inflation and how it's impacting us now. I think it is more of a blip in the longer term perspective. I think inflationary prices will probably be with us for at least another year or so. The term Wall Street throws around is transitory. In other words, they expect this soon to pass. But I think there's some who are now recognizing that it could be longer than just a short-term transitory, or whatever that means. So where do you put your money to work, in the market, as we take a look at interest rates, we take a look at inflation, it has an impact on our day-to-day lives. It also has an impact on the market. But to say the market is a misnomer because there's so many different places or pieces or sectors of the market, and you have to be very, very careful now, given the extraordinary recovery that we've experienced over the past year and a half and how much money really has been made, particularly on the growth side of things, the tech side of things. The cycle is starting to turn and churn, and you really need to be smart now. I reference your listeners back to the late 90s, right? Where just before the tech bubble burst, if you had a 60-40 portfolio where 60% of it was in growth and 40% of it was in fixed income, many of us had that 60% in high tech, type of funds. And if you didn't reallocate, that 60-40 could have been 75, 80, 85%. And you kept going, hey, isn't this great? Until it wasn't. And we had 3 successive years where we had down years. The tech bubble burst in 2000. So you've really got to take a very hard look at your portfolio right now in terms of what's happening with the rotation of the markets, how well you have done. It's certainly what we're doing with our clients right now. We've done very well for many of the clients, certainly no guarantees for any future performance. But, that 60-40 portfolio is now 70-30 or 68-32. And you now have to rebalance because you don't want to put yourself at risk. You're certainly at risk on the conservative side, on the fixed income side, because there is no interest rate right now. And you may be putting yourself at risk because we're going to have a correction that's going to last more than an hour and a half. And what are you going to do at that point in time?
Question for which the answers can be elusive. But if you're in this position, you need to talk to somebody like Mark, get your goals straight, get your strategy worked out, and start preparing for this eventuality, because it's going to be here before you know it. And if you're not prepared, you're really going to have issues. Mark, 55retire.com, that's where we find you?
It is. And for those who are looking, who are starting to think about retirement, the real question is, am I prepared? right? Will I outlive my money? What am I going to do the rest of my life? So if those are your questions, in my latest book, Don't Outlive Your Money in Retirement, we created a quiz. It's a very quick quiz. It's 2 minutes. Invest the 2 minutes. You can go to www.retirenowquiz.com. That's retirenowquiz.com. Fill out the answers to the 15 questions. I'll send you a free chapter of our book. I'll send you a couple of worksheets, and I'll score for you which of the 3 stages of retirement preparedness you're in, so you have a better sense of whether or not you're ready for this next chapter of life.
All right. And that's a very important thing. You need to be prepared for what's ahead. You can't always know, but certainly the outcome here seems very obvious. If you've got a question for Mark, shoot an email to kl@kerrylutz.com. We'll get you an answer. Mark, always appreciate you coming on. And make sure you go over to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sign up for our free newsletter. Mark, we'll talk to you again real soon. Thanks.
Thanks, Kerry.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.